there's no solo future. And a lot of our apocalyptic fantasies like to imagine that, like the lone person stalking a burnt landscape, or even the kind of meme idea of a bunker of a person just like huddled in a steel room surrounded by tons of like fucking SpaghettiOs. I don't know, but like you wouldn't really last very long. Like neither of those are real scenarios. And so it was kind of cool to me to upend this idea of what I thought was kind of like rugged self-sufficiency into realizing like everything else, it's just such an interconnected web.
I'm so excited about our guest today. I've been a huge fan of J Wortham for a really long time.
Bitch,
love
me
everything
too.
that they've done. Love their podcast. Love their mind. I was so curious to hear what they had to say about like this survivalism moment. I feel like there's just a new face of survivalism in America, and it used to be very kind of like neck beard.
Yes.
And it's like more queer now. Not to say queer people can't have a neck beard. But
no, I think it's kind of this shift that we kind of get into in the interview of like from the conservative, prepper type of energy to like now like the girls in Bushwick are like prepping too,
Yep.
So essentially the reason we want to talk to Jay today is because they came out with an article in the New York Times about doing a 10-day crash course on survivalism, which is like an interesting, like, I don't think you would imagine like a New York Times writer necessarily being interested in like survivalism.
No, totally.
And they're a fan of Survivor, and as a fellow fan of Survivor, I was like so intrigued about kind of like why they wanted to do it, why they were interested in like all the things they kind of learned from it. I was so curious.
There are some writers there, or like in the New Yorker, or like some of these other like publications where I just like how their brain works so much that I read anything by them, like Jay or like Gio Tolentino. But then when I can tell they're writing about something I also care about, it's like an overload. Like
I'm locked the fuck in.
Wait, we're talking about mushrooms, Gia? Okay.
Exactly.
Like, take me there. So yeah, Jay writing about like Survivor, like survivalism. I was like, yes.
I'm ready. I'm so locked in.
We usually just start off with you introducing yourself in any way that you feel comfortable with.
The world is my oyster. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm J Wortham. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm a writer. I am a podcaster. I am many things. I'm an herbalist, sound practitioner, reiki practitioner, and, a really present and engaged person in the world, I hope.
Whoa.
Oh, that's
huge.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that. So could you tell us a little bit about like your sound healing, herbalism, and Reiki practice? Like what do your services look like, and like how can these practices be like tools for healing and harm reduction for folks?
For sure. Babette, I love that you said services, because that sounds so professional. And this is not a professional operation, although I wish it were. I mean, okay, so what had happened was in maybe 2014, 15, 16, so now almost a decade ago, I was feeling pretty unwell all the time, which is still true today, but just in a different way. I just had a lot of anxiety. I was having a lot of eczema. I was having a really hard time sleeping. And, the thing about Western medicine is when you go to doctors and you try to explain all these symptoms and fatigue and nervousness or whatever, like, I feel scared to take the subway. They're just like, I don't know, are you sleeping? Are you drinking water? Are you exercising? And it's really infuriating because on one hand, they're right. Like the older I've gotten as I've moved through life, I'm like, yeah, if I actually am not hydrating, I'm not sleeping, I'm not exercising, I'm probably not in great shape. But you also have to have a kind of baseline of health to be able to even do those things.
Right.
I should say my baseline is a lot higher right now. But during that time, I was really a wreck and I was working a really high pressure job. And so I didn't really know what to do. And I'm a real curious person and I love poking around about worlds I don't understand or don't know anything about. And I would always see these flyers for like wellness spaces. You just like hear stuff. And I started being like, okay, well, is there anything in this realm of like capital W wellness that can help me. And, since then we've developed a lot more tools about scam culture and literacy around just wellness propaganda and like this sort of false promises of like self-care in terms of the way it prioritizes the individual over the collective. But I think during that time, it led me into some really interesting spaces. And one of them was a exhibition curated by Simone Lee, which was held at the New Museum. It was modeled after the Black Panther Party's free lunch programs and also the Young Lords who would do free acupuncture uptown and like hijack tuberculosis testing trucks and like take them over to Spanish Harlem. Basically people who were really organized and trying to fill a need and service their communities in traditional and untraditional ways. And there were just tons of workshops. There were acupuncture workshops, herbalism workshops, meditation, just a lot of things I'd heard about, but I didn't know how to access it. Also as a person of the global majority, because a lot of times when I would go into hot yoga spaces or an herbal shop or anything, it would be predominantly kind of white, cis-seeming, straight-seeming people. And I would automatically feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't know how to talk about what's wrong. Is this person going to gaslight me? Are they going to believe me? And it was really, really healing to just enter into a space that already understood the silent killer of oppression and capitalist society and just all the things that I couldn't really name as having a physical and psychological impact on me. Like I knew I was fucked up, but like I think it was the first time that people were like, no, this is sort of the point. Like you're supposed to be feeling cuckoo, And so here are some ways that kind of help you return to your body, to try to feel safe in your body, to even acknowledge you have a body. And not everything was for me and not everything even worked, but it was a space where I could go for free and learn. And I just have never, ever, ever forgotten that. And interviewed her about it for a piece because it really moved me so much about how hard it is to access care and how hard it is to even articulate the care you need.
Totally.
So after that point, I just started getting really into like a lot of trainings. And these worlds too are just like really good at like hooking you. Like I just finished a transcendental meditation course that was free. And at the end they were like, you can come back, like advanced courses. And I just was like, yeah, I forgot that's the game, But it was a great course. It was through the David Lynch Foundation. And I think it's going to be very, very helpful for my brain. But, I was young, I was impressionable. I was like throwing money at anything I thought that could help. And it was also fun. So I took trauma-informed breathwork training. I got initiated in Reiki because a bunch of my friends were doing it. I have a long history and familial relationship to herbalism and like folk, old rural Southern home remedies. So strengthening those tools was really natural for me and brought me a lot of pleasure and ancestral connection. And all of these things, I was like, oh, maybe I can be a practitioner. And kind of before the pandemic hit, season 1 of the pandemic landed, I was like, oh, I'm going to open a shop and this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is my calling and this is, I feel really good about this. And then that has changed quite a bit, but it's still a desire of mine. And I see people, but usually they just reach out to me and ask for a service. And it's some combination of all those things, of some breathwork and Reiki and sound healing and herbalism. And I try to offer it mostly for free. I mean, I have a day job, I have salary privilege. So, when it comes to Black trans folks, it's free. And then everyone else is sliding scale. And the sliding scale is just really, for me, I think, as a protective mechanism to honor that a lot of people do this for a living and they are expensive skills to acquire and also learn how to, facilitate in the right way. And when you have a good facilitator, it makes all the difference. Like sometimes people lay hands and I'm like, I don't know. But I've definitely gone in and worked with people where I'm like, oh, you are a healer. Like you are channeling right now. So I don't want to devalue that work because it shouldn't be free, but I can also afford to make it more accessible. And that's really important to me. So
totally. I feel that way too. I'm like, there's something for me about therapy where I was like, it should be free. And I'm like, no, it should be subsidized. Like, I think they should still be making the exact amount of money that they need to be making. It just shouldn't be my burden.
And insurance shouldn't be taking most of it.
Yeah,
right. Like that's
exactly. Is breathwork a newer thing for you?
Yeah, it was the last thing I trained in. And I had done a couple of really transformative but like also slightly traumatic breathwork sessions like years and years and years ago in a very cold basement in Bushwick where I mean, this is the most Bushwick ass story, but I just all of a sudden realized, first of all, I have to say this. There was no heat. It was winter. We were like in a basement on the floor. So you're just like cold. I need to be warm. And also like you're trying to bring air in and out of the body, whatever. It was like cuckoo. And so the facilitator was amazing. But I just come to realize I'm like, oh, I am like 2 bodies away from my ex's ex. And I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't need to know this. And I don't like this. And my brain is not where it should be right now.
Totally.
So funny.
I'm angry.
You're like, that's how tall they are? You know, like getting like physical cues. Like, wait, I've only seen pictures.
Yeah. But I find breathwork to be a really amazing tool. Like, I think I don't breathe that deeply, you know, like I don't think about it. And
totally.
There is something to be said when you're only like shallow breathing. It's like you're not really refreshing yourself. You're not really oxygenating yourself. And so I like the practice of like remembering to take deep breaths and like box breathing and like 4-4-4 breathing. There's lots of ways to.
Ooh, what are those?
It's like inhale 4, hold 4,
Release
exhale
4.
for 4. Yeah.
Hold 4. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have a friend who just got really into breath work and it has completely changed her life. Like she's just like someone who deals with anxiety in like a very real way and is just like, oh no, I do this one YouTube video that has millions of views every single day and it's like a guided breath work.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I've been into, like as the world is crumbling? I've been into the tapping. I've been into the face tapping.
I almost said
EFT
BPM.
or ETF or EFT. And it's honestly, I don't know what it is. What is it?
It's EFT.
No, like that has really been like bringing me back into my body. Like it. And it's so nice because it's like, it'll be like on TikTok and it'll be like, just take a second. And like, tap.
Totally.
Like, yes, I'll literally do it right now.
You've been scrolling a long time.
Literally.
I hate that
I'm
message.
like, please.
I'm always like, fuck you. And it makes me like, I know I should be getting off, but now I'm just going to double down and say. And then I'm like, did they know that?
Totally.
Yeah. Do they know that's what we're doing?
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
Have you gotten the one that's like, it's late?
Yes. Yes.
So
and
humiliating.
You're like, what the fuck?
It's like they know everyone scrolling has ADHD is just going to do the exact opposite of what they say. Like,
totally. Defiance disorder.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oppositional defiance.
Wait, what's that?
It's like where you want to do
lifestyle.
the opposite. Yeah, exactly. It's when you want to do the exact opposite of what someone tells you to do.
Yeah. It's a big ADHD thing.
I'm diagnosed. I have this. I have this. Full stop.
And that's our time for today. I'm so glad
exactly.
Well, what do you all do to take care of yourself? I mean, we've got the EFT tapping. I mean, what else? What are other strategies that are helping you? And how do you make time for them?
I love meditation. I do like silent meditation retreats, but that's really hard to plan around because you just don't have a phone for like 10 days. It's like so only by the grace of freelance can I possibly do something like that. What about you, Babette?
I discovered working out, which is like, oh yeah, exercising really does help. And I think I did a lot of sports growing up. And so I had a very kind of shameful relationship to exercise. Again, just the being told you're not good enough, you're not doing enough. So it took me a long time to figure out what was right for me. And there is an Orange Theory like down the street from my house.
No way. You strap up with the EKG machine and everything?
Oh, no. It's not an EKG. You mean like
or whatever it is, the heart rate monitor.
EKG machine. I'm like, I have like wires coming off of my head and everything. No. Yeah, no, I do Orange Theory. And honestly, it was the kind of thing where people told me it was super intense. Like, it's kind of a cult. But like, I think it just depends where you are. Like, yeah, maybe in New York, you know, it might attract a certain type of person. But in my Orange Theory, it's like a lot of folks from my neighborhood. Like, I see a lot of my neighbors. Cool. And like, it is honestly the most like body and age diversity I've seen like in a gym setting. Like, there are like 75, 80-year-olds like in there, like getting it. And so it was just figuring out like what worked for me. And for me, it's like, because it's so hard to schedule, the barrier to entry has to be so low. And the fact that it's down the street is what did it. Like, if I have to get in my car to go to the gym, I'm not going to the gym. But like this, it's like, I have like a little break at lunch. Let me go work out for like an hour. So
yeah.
I love that.
Oh, and my roommate and I do it together. So it's really fun.
Cute.
Yeah. We did it yesterday and my legs are jello. So
Yeah.
I love that.
thank you for that question. I always love when folks ask us. It's like,
I know. Got
It's
it right back.
We all are finding our own little ways of like prioritizing ourselves and like disconnecting a little bit from whatever this apparatus is. And so it's cool to hear about it. And it is simple things. It is like sitting still and not having your phone, like moving your body, you know, it feels like it's so much harder than it should be, but it is about like accountability and cultivating routines and
exactly
making it work.
So we have like multiple arcs this season. Allie's been exploring kind of like a parenting arc. And then like I'm on the other hand, like single and feral and like considering like going into the woods and like living my life basically. So we've been kind of thinking about this kind of like survival, like surviving the end of the world type of arc thing. And you wrote this piece for New York Times Magazine called My 10-Day Crash Course on Surviving the Apocalypse, which we loved. And we were wondering just first if you could tell us about the ideation for that piece and like what made you want to kind of do that in the first place? Like go on this like 10-day survivalist crash course.
What made me want to do that? I like learning things and I like learning how to do things. And I feel really competent and capable when I know how to do stuff. And I also watch the show Survivor pretty religiously.
I just watched it before this. It's so good.
It's always so good. It's just like really scratches such a brain itch for me. It's like really interesting to see the interplay of social currency and communication and sort of subterfuge. And so I think I just kind of got really obsessed as one does while watching, while you think about what you would do in those scenarios. And I was kind of like, well, I have to learn how to make fire. Like I can't even think about going on the show if I don't know how to make fire. Because I'm like, I would be good at Survivor.
Would you audition?
Oh my God.
I would audition. I've actually thought about it for years. Yes, I would audition. I'd be like a Mike White. And it was kind of like a joke among friends, but also I am someone who like learns about fermentation. Like I grew up canning, like my parents, again, like rural people who would be like, you know, learn how to grow veggies and like, here's how we can them. And, you know, my dad would always take me fishing. So like learning how to catch fish and clean them. It's like, I like knowing how to do stuff. And I think it makes me kind of scared to just be so dependent on my phone. You know, I don't know. I like having skills. It's like, I just don't want to be helpless, I think, in the world. And also I put this in the piece, but like living in New York through Hurricane Sandy was really an awakening for me about like how vulnerable we are and how fragile the city's infrastructure is, which we know, but it had really been tested during that time. And I think it was just kind of a rude awakening about what we need to do. And I think, I'm sure after that, I like made it go bag, but then I was just like, eating the food in it and getting the cash out for nail appointments. I don't know. It didn't like stick, you know, like definitely didn't stick. But all of those things kind of emerged in me being like, is there a way I can get my job to pay for this thing that I would like to do that's expensive, but I think would be really fun? Survivalism training. And so then I found this teacher and was like, yeah, I actually want to work with like a not white person who thinks about like indigeneity and thinks about the land and has a relationship to the land. And a lot of people on Alone have that mindset, Alone being the TV show, the opposite of Survivor, which drops people off to actually survive off the land. And I was just like, yeah, I want to do this. Like, I want to spearfish. I want to make a net. I want to just basically like find water. I want to learn how to make fire. I want to learn how to hunt. Like, I just want to know how to do all of these things. And it was truly like a really wild boot camp. Like my instructor, I think he definitely had undiagnosed ADHD because we would just be like hanging out and then he would just like bring out all these projectiles and be like, do you want to learn how to hit like a rabbit out of a tree or whatever? And I'd be like, yeah, you know. It was just really fun. But it was like a really kooky time also. Like it was really, really hard and intense, and it was challenging in ways that I couldn't have expected, but I think it did help me feel definitely more equipped. But one thing that didn't really make it into the piece is that we were in this really remote part of Mexico, and it's an area where people do fly fishing, so it's like world renowned. So like people come from all over, and we were there a little bit before the season, but you would see some boats and stuff, and it was just really hard to catch fish sometimes. And the guide had been coming there for years and years and years and years and years, and he was just like reflecting, like, yeah, there's just like a lot less fish, and like there's a lot more pollution. And I just felt a lot of grief around that. Like I was just kind of like we did like hand lining one day, which is we just had a roll of fishing line and then we're like digging up bait, like worms to use as bait, and then like making little hooks and then just like wading into like waist high, like shallowish water, and then like just trying to like dangle and then like kind of catch his fish, which actually worked. It worked very well. And that was like very cool to be like, okay, like there's just like basic things if you can like figure it out. But there was a lot of litter in the water just because of the bay that we were in. And I was like, this pristine ass like land, like we've been all over this water and, you know.
And Tulum, like with all the new builds and like resorts and stuff, I know that they have a huge issue with plumbing going straight into the water.
I have never been to Tulum and not gotten sick as a dog. So that sounds exactly right. I did fly into Tulum and then we drove really far down and then we took a boat out, but the trash was washing up from other parts of Mexico.
Totally.
Like, we were in this little town for a bit and then we went out to this island and the trash, it wasn't their trash.
Whoa.
It probably wasn't the trash of this like tiny town.
Totally.
But we would be in the middle of nowhere. Like we would be like on a boat, truly just in the middle of nowhere, and you would see like a prescription bottle go by and you're just like, yeah, everything's polluted. And I think it really affected my even ability to eat because you're just kind of like, what's even in the water? You know, I couldn't really, it was hard. I had a lot of environmental grief. I mean, that was like the biggest thing for me where I was kind of like, what's the point of surviving if there's nothing left to survive on or with? Like it really fucked me up actually for a while when I got back.
Yeah, that's really crazy. There's something about like the prepper mentality, or not even prepper, but just kind of like homesteading or like return to self-sustaining that is like really attractive to me. But yeah, there is like this other side of it where you want like environmental progress with that as well, because then it's like, oh, it's just going to be me and the land. Well then, yeah, let's talk about the land. Like, what's going on?
Which is probably an argument for why more of us should do it, right? Because we're really divorced from the actual logistics of being alive. Wow. Even though we tend to our homes, we tend to our lives, but in terms of like our waterways or like our foodways, like we don't really see them. And I think if people did have access, then we would be a bit more radicalized and a bit more politicized around it. I mean, that's definitely how I came away feeling. And I know that's like one of the goals of a lot of people who go on that TV show alone. Like they're like, yeah, like if you understood how hard it was to make a shirt or like make a blanket to keep you warm, you wouldn't just like throw away shit and contribute to this problem. And they're right. And it's kind of astounding. Like it just kind of does fill you with this sense of awe. And you also kind of quickly realize you need people. Like there's no solo future. And a lot of our apocalyptic fantasies like to imagine that, like the lone person stalking a burnt landscape, or even the kind of meme idea of a bunker of a person just like huddled in a steel room surrounded by tons of like fucking SpaghettiOs. I don't know. But like you wouldn't really last very long. Like neither of those are real scenarios. And so it was kind of cool to me to upend this idea of what I thought was kind of like rugged self-sufficiency into realizing like everything else, it's just such an interconnected web.
Wow. What do you think is the importance of kind of getting into these self-sustaining or like prepper or whatever kind of like modes of thinking? Like, do you think that that's specifically important for like marginalized people, or like is this a response to like how crazy America has felt lately? And is there kind of a dropout feeling propelling this for a lot of people? Or do you think that this is just like an actual necessary thing for us in the future of this country?
I mean, it's old and new. Survivalism in the US is like a hobby. And in the arc of the world and the arc of reality right now, you know, it is just fact for some people. And all of our ancestors and our transcestors had to figure it out. And survivalism looked really different for them than it does for us. But that doesn't make it less valid, or I don't know. But I think there's always been a form of this because we exist outside of the paradigms of valued life, I guess, And so if you're not conforming or adhering or even seen as a fully embodied person, like you don't have access. And even those fucking people don't have access, but that's a whole other conversation.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Oh my God,
I'm like,
totally.
Come on, y'all. But we really don't have access to just basic resources and are not considered in the creation of empire or society or anything. I mean, this is what we're seeing now is like what's happening with this administration is they're trying to take away what little we've fought for and earned and push us even farther to the margins is kind of a reaffirmation that our lives are less valuable than their lives. And it's really, actually crazy. I can actually use the word crazy. But to them, it makes perfect sense. And so I think in response to that, there is a little bit of an invitation for those who have the capacity to try to rethink how we exist. And then it gets really exciting to think about like opting out a little bit. And I think you kind of see that with the way a lot of organizing is not that publicly available. Like just information is going underground. Like we're getting really hip to surveillance. We're understanding that like, it's like, who are my neighbors? And like, that's going to help you more right now than probably resharing something on Instagram. Like it's going to be a lot more helpful to know who you live next door to, their names, and have that trust built so that when they're in need or you're in need, that's the network. And I think these are the things we're really coming to understand. And I am really interested in researching Black survivalist communities, like just little whispers of things that I heard. I was in Durham for a film fellowship at Duke, and a friend who lives down there on a lot of land was giving me GUN lessons. And I'm like, I don't know, my family's all military. I've definitely grown up around guns and I don't want to use them, but like, I don't want to be afraid of them. And I want to know how they work and I want to understand what I'm looking at because that's adaptive in my opinion. I don't want to own a gun, but I do want to know how to use one and disarm one if I need to, So I think it is in response to this period of time where I was going to say that we're barreling into, but honestly, it's barreling into us. But I think it's older than right now. And I find that to be kind of encouraging. Like, I'm kind of like, there are a lot of maps and blueprints. And because our culture is so amnesiac, if that's a word, and we engineer in forgetting to history and we don't know these stories, but there's also such a creative and cultural practice right now of like unearthing all that information. So it's kind of where I landed on it.
Wow.
Yeah. What you said about survivalism in the US being a hobby is like so powerful because, we essentially get to live in the US these somewhat comfortable lives off of the backs of like everyone in the third world, right? And so like, we have the privilege to like look at survival as this thing to get into, whereas like, for many of us, like our ancestors, folks who have essentially built and created the American empire, the bricks of the American empire, like they did not have a choice. It's like survival was not something they could dabble in or get into, but instead like this like necessity. And it's getting me thinking, like we said, like this isn't new.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to like the yearning for being more connected to the earth.
Yeah.
I was watching this video that was so interesting by this like man in Portland who helps people create like more communal living on the city grid and was just talking about how all the straight lines in our life really divide us and are just for commerce and it's not helping us. And he helps like people who happen to be neighbors break down all of their fences and create like a communal landscape that they can with like paths that cross through it. And he's like, the sun setting, like the color of a setting sun on water is like so calming and none of us have access to that. We always see is like pavement and they like build little like, he has like this little like hobbit looking hutch in front of his house that just has free tea. It's like a free tea and coffee station and he goes out and like fills it with hot water in the morning. And I was just like, wait, why is this blowing my mind right now? Like it's all so attainable, but it is very true. Like we're completely divorced and it's just to be able to like get to our jobs as fast as possible. Like that's pretty brutal.
Bleak.
Yes.
So bleak.
I do see this kind of maybe connection between like your practice in herbalism and like kind of maybe this interest in survival, which is like you said, you just like to learn shit and like you're a curious person. Do you have any maybe recommendations for folks who like are interested in that stuff but maybe can't afford the class?
I do. I guess I would say that, YouTube is an incredible resource. I don't have any survivalist shows that I recommend or like channels or whatever. But a lot of people on there share knowledge constantly. So if you're curious about building a shelter, like you could watch a YouTube video and there's podcasts. I mean, it's all mostly authored and promoted by, like a very particular kind of person in camo. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. But there's a lot of information out there. I think it's just kind of hard to parse like what you need to know. And I would say that I think if there's a skill or hobby that you're interested in learning, like you're like, oh, I've always wanted to learn more about herbalism, or I've always wanted to learn more about like fermentation, like food preservation, or I want to know more about like knitting, maybe think about pursuing that one skill in an affordable way and recognize that it will be like a great contribution to whatever is happening in the future. Because again, it's not like one person needs to know how to do everything. It's just helpful to have a thing that you can do relatively well. And so then it gets really easy because it's like, well, if you live in an area where there's some sort of nature, you can take a plant walk class. A lot of botanical gardens and local libraries will offer plant identification. And that's super helpful just to know what plants are around me. Bird watching, right? Like in New York, we have like weird bird watchers and you can go out for free with binoculars or not and like just learn more about the animals that live in New York City. And it's just having a more familiar relationship with the landscape and the neighborhood is really helpful. And I think even like learning how to make kombucha was really helpful because it's just like water, sugar, and tea. And like that I have this like delicious drink that's good for me. And that was like my early pandemic thing. I was just like making tons of kombucha and giving it away. And it just felt really good to be like, I'm doing something that cost me pennies. And I feel like you're kind of getting away with something, or like I'm not spending $8 on this thing. And I just think those little moments where you get a little bit of liberation from just the oppressive architecture of modern capitalist society are really, really liberating and should not be taken for granted. And then one practical thing I learned is, I worked on learning how to make fire like 5 different ways. And my teacher was like, but just carry a lighter with you always. Yeah. Like just always have a lighter because you don't want to be like, I need the perfect conditions to start a fire.
Right.
Or I forgot my fire making kit. If you have a lighter. And like that, I think little things like that, just remembering like you don't actually have to do everything from scratch. And if you ever run a survival situation, just like getting your hands on some matches or a lighter it's just like having that kind of awareness of that mentality of like, I can figure it out and I don't have to have taken a very expensive course to have like a basic need being met.
We have one more question for you about your upcoming book project about dissociation called Work of Body. Could you tell us more about that? And like, is dissociation like a bad thing inherently? Like, can it be helpful in some situations?
Sure, yeah. So my next book project, Work of Body, is about coming to realize that I'm a dissociative person and what that means for me. And also, I don't have an extreme dissociative identity disorder, but I would say more past tense, but it still does happen. But like, I do dissociate quite a bit. It did have a not great effect on my life mostly because I didn't know what was happening. So it was just really scary because all of a sudden I'd be like, I feel really out of it, or I feel really confused, or like, I feel like I need to sit down, or like I'm dizzy. Like I just never really knew what was going on. Or I would be like, I'd go for a walk and then I kind of like tune out and all of a sudden I'd be like, I'm on the other side of town. Like this happened when I was hiking in LA once which is truly scary because I ended up on like the other side of the park that I was on. And then I like started crying because I was like, I gotta get back. Like
scary.
LA is huge and it's hot, Yeah. It's like, and I wanted to write a little bit more about maybe like a cultural interpretation of dissociation. So like looking at some of the history, also thinking about gender dissociation, which is like a really, common milestone in like a trans journey and can be really helpful to dissociate from cultural ideas of gender. And I wanted to look at it in pop culture, and also a lot of artists talk about going into a third space. I mean, you think about the Emancipation of Mimi or like Sasha Fierce or Blue Ivy the Manager. It's like people have these personas that they step into to allow them to do other things. So we manufacture alters because we need them to perform certain functions. So to answer your question, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, we're supposed to dissociate. Like when you play as a kid and you're deep in the world of imagination, that's dissociation. Or when you go to the movies, that's healthy dissociation. Or when you read a book, it's just that it is a coping mechanism for dealing with really intense trauma. And there's a lot of research too that's coming out that it's just a coping mechanism for dealing with overwhelm. And I think the challenge becomes when you're not employing it or deploying it, it's just being done to you. I feel very dissociative when I use TikTok. Like I'm just like, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I'm like, totally. I'm going to wake up in Berlin. Like, I don't know. It's a long flight. Like, and it's kind of hard because I like it. I really love that feeling.
I love it. Yeah. Wow.
And, like we were saying earlier, like they send these little messages that's like, stop scrolling, but they don't seem to actually work. Like the app could shut down, or the app could make it impossible to advance before you answer a series of questions. There's a lot that the app could do, but instead they send you these like really annoying messages that feel really disruptive. And I think with TikTok too, like I'm trying to have a certain thing happen before I end. Like I want to get usually like a good giggle off, and I'm looking for it, or I want a certain update on a TikToker.
Something,
And that message, if it hasn't happened yet, I'm like, well, I might be about to get off, but anyway, so just to say, like a lot of times we're not opting out. Like we're able to kind of log on to these experiences that help us feel more connected or more distracted or whatever, and then we can't get out of them in a way that feels easy.
Yeah.
So we just live in such a dissociative world, and there's a lot to want to dissociate from.
That is so interesting. I have a friend who was talking to me about SLAW, like the Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous program. I had no idea that there was almost like a branch or like a focused group version of that about fantasy and an addiction to living in fantasy, and the way that you kind of build a totally different version of a person up in your mind when you first meet them. And I was like, whoa, I could actually totally benefit from. I think that's a version of dissociation for me. It's not even necessarily always romantic, but just as a kid, I think I felt so stuck. I got really used to living for like hours at a time, just thinking I'm something else, or I'm living somewhere else, or something like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's like a self-prompted version of dissociation for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And not always bad, again. Like you are able to press pause. And I'm curious about, like, now we're really galaxy braining, but like the opioid epidemic. And I'm like, are some people unable to dissociate as readily or on their own terms as they want to be able to? Is that why these like dissociative drugs have like risen in such a crazy way in this country?
Definitely. It's all connected. There are some theories too about addiction that talk about it as like memory work, like you're kind of reliving memories of things in addiction, or you're trying to escape loops of memories. It's sort of like both and. And then when I think about it that way, I'm like, well, yeah, dissociation is such a huge part of addiction, because you're either trying to dissociate so that you can kind of be in that fantasy, or you're trying to dissociate from something that you don't want to relive. Like, I think that really tracks for me in one of my understandings of addiction, for sure.
Whoa. Yeah, a big part of the spiral and the title of this podcast is about like how we kind of relive similar things. Like it's all throughout time, but you can collapse and kind of be in like a very similar place, and you kind of hit this thing over and over again.
Whew. I'm going to go reflect after this a little bit.
This sounds like a really sick book.
No,
yeah,
just
I'm
relax.
So
Just go on TikTok.
Exactly.
Watch a water mukbang. It's fine.
Oh my, wait, water mukbang?
I love a water mukbang. Yeah, they're just drinking a lot of water. Different kinds of water sometimes too.
The worlds are infinite. Thank you so much to J Wortham. We linked to their books, their podcast, their Instagram, and their writing, including the piece on survivalism, in the show notes. Be sure to go check them out.
Gender Spiral is an original podcast from Audiation. This episode was mixed by Matt Noble. Theme music is composed by Chanel Kirchlow, remixed by Daria Lord. Additional music by Command Jasmine, courtesy of Molten Heart, with art by Joey Hahn and graphics by Michael Tyrone Delaney.
The show is executive produced by Ireland Meacham, myself, Babette Thomas, and my co-host Ali Beardsley, along with Sandy Smullins, with some additional story editing from Susie Armitage.
If you want to help us out, you can rate or review us wherever you're listening to us right now, and follow us on Instagram at Gender Spiral to get notified about new episodes.
And be sure to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Gender Spiral Podcast. For $2 a month, you can listen to the entire back catalog of Gender Spiral episodes ad-free. Plus, you can get access to our Discord community. Higher tiers will get you exclusive bonus content, plus gifts from us like these cute little monthly postcards and free merch.
You can also check us out at genderspiralpod.com, where you'll find transcripts for each episode and a link to leave us a voicemail. And you can shop our merch store.
Audiation.